Hello and a very warm welcome to a brand new edition of World Panorama on Rajya Sabha Television with me, Frank Pereira. Over the next half an hour, we'll bring you a roundup of all the significant events that have happened around the world this week. But first, a look at the headlines. US senators strike a deal to lift a 3-day government shutdown. Democrats agree to end standoff after Republicans promise a debate on the future of the young illegal immigrants. India-Asean relationship scales new heights. Delhi declaration talks of new setups for maritime cooperation and terror fight. Flags of all 10 ASEAN nations add more colour to the Republic Day parade. Prime Minister Modi delivers a statesman-like speech at the World Economic Forum in Davos, lists climate change, terrorism and protectionism as the 3 big challenges for the world. And British legend Elton John announces an extensive farewell tour that will include 300 dates over the next 3 years. Well, the US government partial shutdown ended earlier this week after Republicans and Democrats voted for a temporary funding bill. The Democratic leadership agreed to back the bill after accepting promises from Republicans for a debate later on the future of young illegal immigrants. President Donald Trump, who signed the bill on Monday evening, took a swipe at Democrats. It is the 4th temporary measure since October. Here's a detailed report.
Congress voted on Monday to end a 3-day US government shutdown, approving the latest short-term funding bill as Democrats accepted promises from Republicans for a broader debate later on the future of young illegal immigrants. The US Senate approved the measure by an 81-18 vote and sent the bill to the House of Representatives.
Are there any senators in the chamber wishing to vote or wishing to change their vote? If not, the yeas are 81, the nays are 18. The motion to concur is agreed to with amendment.
A motion to reconsider is laid on the table.
The US House of Representatives then passed the short-term measure. By a 266-150 vote, the Republican-led House quickly followed the Senate and approved the stopgap bill, which includes a 6-year extension of the Children's Health Insurance Program, but not protections for dreamer immigrants sought by Democrats.
To America. This is about meeting the needs of the American people. It is also about honoring the values that has made our nation a beacon to the world. Today, we end the Trump shutdown, but it does not diminish our leverage or our determination on the Democratic side to meet the needs of the American people. Democrats are united in our determination to get the job done. We are unified for a better deal, better jobs, better pay, and a better future. I urge a no vote and yield back.
President Donald Trump later in the evening signed the measure, largely a product of negotiations among Senate leaders. Enactment by Trump of the bill allowed the government to reopen fully on Tuesday and keep the lights on through 8th of February, when the Republican-led Congress will have to revisit budget and immigration policy, 2 disparate issues that have become closely linked. Meanwhile, young dreamers brought to the US illegally as children were angry and disappointed that the shutdown ended without a deal to shore up their shaky legal status.
I felt outraged. I'm outraged. We're all furious by what's going on because they have shown us that they do not care about us. All the things that, the advertisements that have been going on show how much that they hate us. But I don't understand why they hate us. We're here working hard, paying our taxes, trying to get a better education, trying to make our community better, yet they don't care. They don't care that we're out here not knowing what's going to happen next.
Disappointing knowing that certain Democrats voted with a continuing resolution that will not carry a Clean Dream Act. That is honestly something that this isn't, like I said, this isn't an immigration issue anymore. It's a humanitarian issue. A humanitarian issue that includes the future leaders of America, the future lawyers, the future teachers, the future citizens of this country. It's something that they should honestly take into consideration when they're voting and when they're thinking about whether or not to vote yes or no.
Last year, President Donald Trump ordered an end by March to protections provided to an estimated 7 lakh dreamers under the 2012 Deferred Action for Childhood Arrival Program or DACA program, an executive order put in place by former Democratic President Barack Obama. Bureau Report, Rajya Sabha TV.
Well, US President Donald Trump on Friday proposed to end the visa lottery system in favor of reducing backlogs of highly skilled workers. It is a plan that may benefit thousands of Indian IT professionals who are currently having several decades of waiting period to get their green cards. The Diversity Immigrant Visa program, which the Trump administration wants to terminate, awards up to 50,000 individuals per year a visa for a green card, which allows permanent residency and is a path to US citizenship. Trump has been against diversity visa as he believes that this does not attract the best and the brightest to the US. In the recent past, several homegrown terrorists, including the prime accused of the New York terrorist attacks, came either on diversity visa or chain migration. Well, joining me to talk about this and, of course, what's happening in the United States is strategic analyst Mr. K.P. Nayar. So, Nayar, thank you for joining me on the program. Let's talk about Trump's immigration plan first. What is it that he has planned for the US as far as immigration is concerned?
Well, Trump has unveiled a comprehensive immigration plan on Thursday, which he hopes will go through Congress and once and for all settle the question of over 13 million illegal immigrants. But several presidents have done this. George W. Bush wanted to push through a comprehensive immigration plan. It got nowhere. During President Obama's time, there was a proposal to do this. You see, every group in the Congress has vested interests. Like, for example, New York and New Jersey, the congressmen are completely beholden to Indian voters and Indian supporters, because that is the large and rich immigrant community there. Similarly, in Texas and Florida, it is the immigrants from down south in Spanish-speaking Hispanic America, yes, who are the lobby. So it's very difficult to sort of merge all these interests and make it into a workable
So in the
plan.
past it hasn't been successful is what you're suggesting, so it's going to be difficult to make it work this time too.
Yes, that is true. But you refer to the diversity visa lottery. There have been from time to time demands that it should be abolished. Partly because, anybody, it's just luck. It is really a lottery. And many of the people who have come in are criminals, There's no really foolproof way of waiting, but it doesn't affect us, because India is not part of the diversity visa lottery. It is countries which have lower representation in the society which are eligible, like Melania Trump's country, Slovenia. People from her family could apply perhaps,
sure,
for this sort of thing. But the proposal that Trump has made on Thursday goes beyond many previous proposals, and he has done this because he wants funding for the wall.
Yeah,
that is part of his campaign pledge.
How popular do you think that this move is going to be? I mean, what kind of traction is it going to get on the ground in the US?
You mean the wall?
Yes, the wall.
You see, Trump started by saying that I will build the wall and I will make Mexico pay for it. But Mexicans completely refused. So now he wants the US taxpayer to pay for it. I don't think it will go through as things stand now, partly because compared to the previous decades, the kind of people, I mean, the flow of illegal immigrants has really come
reduced,
down.
yes.
When I was in San Diego recently, the Border Patrol people told me that for the first time after the 2008 global meltdown, people are going back because there are no jobs in the US, you know. So, under the circumstances, it's very difficult to sell the idea of a wall if it has to be paid by the US
citizens. Talking about the comprehensive immigration plan now, who stands to benefit the most from it, do you think?
Well, that depends really on the elements as it is fleshed out. See, in US Congress, the problem is that you table one legislation. So, supposing there is this bill on comprehensive immigration, it goes through several changes. Any congressman can attach or detach things from the bill. Some people even attach defense appropriation to this. So, it is very difficult to see how the final shape of the bill will emerge. When we had the nuclear deal with the US, you know, one senator attached funding for the Los Alamos laboratory on the West Coast. That has nothing to do with our nuclear deal. So we don't know what the final
shape it will take. Okay, a quick reaction now finally before I let you go on what's going to happen with the US shutdown. Of course, it is ended now, but only till February 8th. What's going to happen after that?
The shutdown is really political. It has nothing to do with the budget as it is made out to be. But Democrats have decided that they will take the risk and push for the shutdown. But they are also careful not to extend the shutdown for months, you know. Not this last time it was 13 days when Obama was in power. This time they were clever to restrict it to 3 days. So you get a shock treatment, it energizes your base, and then you have another period when nothing is shut down. And then again, when crisis comes, you again shut it down for 2-3 days. You know, this is a way of keeping the president on his toes.
Okay, and nothing more, and there's nothing more to it than that. All right, we'll have to leave it at that. Thank you so much, Mr. K.P. Nayar, for joining me on the program, putting things into perspective for us. Moving on now, of course, all 10 ASEAN leaders have conveyed to India their desire to see India play a more assertive role in the strategically important Indo-Pacific region, while recognizing the country's growing stature in ensuring regional peace and stability. For the first time, ASEAN nations adopted unanimous resolutions against the designs of China and Pakistan's attitude towards terrorism. Without naming the two countries, all ASEAN nations joined hands with India in condemning cross-border terrorism emanating from one country and affecting the other. The resolutions were adopted as Delhi Declaration at the conclusion of the India-Asean Commemorative Summit held in Delhi this week. Here's more.
Declaration was adopted at the end of the India-ASEAN Commemorative Summit. It includes Indian concerns on cross-border terrorism emanating from Pakistan and supports its stand against Pakistan's policy to fund and shelter terrorists. The declaration further reiterates commitment for a comprehensive approach to combat terrorism, promotes close cooperation in disrupting terrorist networks by countering cross-border movement of fighters and their misuse of internet, including social media, strengthens cooperation to stop terrorism financing efforts, supports efforts to target terrorist groups and sanctuaries, states that there can be no justification for acts of terror on any grounds whatsoever.
The need for working collectively in combating the menace of terrorism, also of working collectively in countering radicalization. Here, in specific discussions that our Prime Minister had with the Prime Minister of Malaysia and Indonesia, they both shared their own experience and the legislation that they have introduced. Maritime cooperation was another one, specifically relating to handling both traditional and non-traditional security challenges, including humanitarian disaster relief, security cooperation, and freedom of navigation were the key areas that were identified for maritime cooperation.
The ASEAN nations, along with India, also condemned the Chinese attitude in South China Sea. The declaration says that to promote peace in the ASEAN region, the contentious issues must be resolved according to the 1982 United Nations Convention on the Law of the Sea. India and the ASEAN nations also pledged to strengthen economic and trade cooperation. The Delhi Declaration says both India and ASEAN can become biggest trade blocs, and to fulfill this dream, they decided to establish the ASEAN-India Trade and Investment Centre to strengthen business-to-business relations. Akhilesh Suman's report for Rajya Sabha TV.
Well, from Asia to the Swiss Alps, up ahead on World Panorama, we get you the highlights from Prime Minister Modi's keynote speech at Davos. And we'll also take a look at the spirit of ASEAN on India's Republic Day. Stay tuned, we'll be right back. Welcome back. You're watching World Panorama with me, Frank Pereira. The 69th Republic Day on Friday celebrated 25 years of India-ASEAN partnership, with all 10 heads of states attending the grand parade at Rajpath as chief guests for the first time ever. The colours of ASEAN were on full display at the Republic Day ceremony. From tableaus to performances, march pasts and fly pasts, the spirit of ASEAN was present throughout the parade.
The 69th Republic Day celebrations witnessed an unprecedented event in India's history. Heads of states of all 10 ASEAN nations, including Indonesia, Malaysia, Philippines, Singapore, Thailand, Brunei, Cambodia, Laos, Myanmar and Vietnam, attended the parade as chief guests. They were warmly welcomed by the Prime Minister at Rajpath. The Republic Day Parade too celebrated the spirit of 25 years of India-ASEAN partnership. For the first time ever, the parade started with a flag march by a contingent of the Rajputana Rifles Regiment carrying the ASEAN flag as well as the flags of the 10 ASEAN nations. The ASEAN leaders watched the grand parade sitting on a 100-foot bulletproof stage along with President Ramnath Kovind, Vice President M. Venkaiah Naidu and Prime Minister Narendra Modi. An ASEAN tableau also rolled down Rajpath, named ASEAN-India 25. The tableau made by the Ministry of External Affairs portrayed historical, civilizational and religious links as the binding force between India and ASEAN countries. The front portion of this tableau portrayed the Mahabodhi temple and Bodhi tree at Bodh Gaya, where Gautam Buddha attained enlightenment. The rear part depicted a melange of diverse Southeast Asian Ramayanas. Couples wearing traditional attires of the 10 ASEAN countries and carrying flags of the member nations accompanied the tableau. 150 students from Delhi's Mount Abu Public School also showcased 25 years of India-ASEAN relationship in a dance performance. The ASEAN leaders were in New Delhi to attend the India-ASEAN Summit.
Meanwhile, in Davos, Prime Minister Narendra Modi, as the keynote speaker, addressed the plenary session of the World Economic Forum on Tuesday. The much-awaited speech focused on the new India and its willingness to transform and perform, and also the challenges ahead for the global community.
Showcasing New India at the plenary session of the 48th World Economic Forum, Prime Minister Narendra Modi said his government has chosen the path of reform, perform and transform. Hard-selling India as an investment destination, he said that country is making historic changes in its economic and social policies to enable ease of business.
मैं आप सबका आह्वान करता हूं कि अगर आप वेल्थ के साथ वेलनेस चाहते हैं तो भारत में आइए। अगर आप हेल्थ के साथ जीवन की होलनेस यानी समग्रता चाहते हैं तो भारत में आए। अगर आप प्रॉस्पेरिटी के साथ पीस चाहते हैं तो भारत में आए। आप भारत आए, भारत में हमेशा आपका स्वागत होगा।
Speaking on the grave threats facing the world, Prime Minister Modi said climate change is the biggest challenge. Listing terrorism as the second grave global challenge, Prime Minister Modi said radicalization of educated youth is a serious concern, just as protectionism is another major challenge.
हर कोई कहता है कि कार्बन एमिशन को कम करना चाहिए, लेकिन ऐसे कितने देश या लोग हैं जो विकासशील देशों और समाजों को उपयुक्त टेक्नोलॉजी उपलब्ध कराने के लिए आवश्यक संसाधन मुहैया कराने में मदद करने के लिए आगे आते हैं। आतंकवाद जितना खतरनाक है उससे भी खतरनाक है गुड टेररिस्ट और बैड टेररिस्ट के बीच बनाया गया आर्टिफिशियल भेद। ग्लोबलाइजेशन अपने नाम के विपरीत सिकुड़ता चला जा रहा है। इस प्रकार की मनोवृत्तियां और गलत प्राथमिकताओं के दुष्परिणाम को क्लाइमेट चेंज या आतंकवाद के खतरे से हम कम नहीं आंक सकते।
Addressing the plenary session, Prime Minister Narendra Modi raised the issue of challenges being posed by technology and social media.
आज डेटा ये बहुत बड़ी संपदा है। डेटा के ग्लोबल फ्लो से सबसे बड़े अवसर बन रहे हैं और सबसे बड़ी चुनौतियां भी।
Sounding a positive note, Prime Minister Modi emphasized that a predictable, stable, transparent and progressive India is good news in an otherwise uncertain global environment.
A predictable, stable, transparent and progressive India will continue to be the good news in an otherwise state of uncertainty and flux. An India where enormous diversity exists harmoniously will always be unifying and harmonizing force.
Narendra Modi is the first Indian Prime Minister to address the World Economic Forum in Davos in 2 decades. Prime Minister Modi pointed out that before him, H.D. Deve Gowda had attended the summit in 1997 and since then, India's GDP has risen 6 times. Akhilesh Suman's report for Rajya Sabha TV.
Well, much else has unfolded around the world this week. Here's a quick roundup of some other international news in Globe Watch. A day after the deadly fire in the South Korean hospital, officials confirmed that at least 41 people were killed and about 130 injured. The blaze is thought to have started in the emergency room of Sejong Hospital. Nearly 200 patients were inside the building and an adjoining nursing home when the fire broke out on Friday morning. It is South Korea's deadliest fire in almost a decade. In one of the deadliest terrorist attacks in Kabul, which lasted for 17 hours from Saturday night through to Sunday, scores were slaughtered as 6 Taliban operatives stormed Kabul's luxury intercontinental hotel and started firing indiscriminately. Meanwhile, thick smoke billowed from the hotel on Sunday as security forces regained control of the building. Over 22 people were killed in the attack. The 6 Taliban fighters who stormed the hotel on Saturday were eliminated. According to an Afghan news agency, the death toll could be as high as 43, including at least 14 foreign nationals. A legislation seeking to prohibit the US from sending nearly $2 billion to Pakistan was introduced in the Senate by a top Republican leader. The bill introduced by Senator Rand Paul seeks to redirect the funds amounting to $1.28 billion from the State Department and $852 million from the United States Agency for International Development to the Highway Trust Fund. The bill comes after Donald Trump, in his first tweet of 2018, said that the US had foolishly given Pakistan more than $33 billion in aid over the last 15 years, while Pakistan had returned only lies and deceit. The entire USA Gymnastics or USAG board has said it will comply with the US Olympic Committee's ultimatum to resign over an abuse scandal. 5 members have already put in their resignations. The USOC outlined the steps after ex-USAG Dr. Larry Nassar was sentenced to 40 to 175 years for sexually abusing young athletes. Nearly 160 women have accused him of sexual abuse. The nominations for the 90th Academy Awards were announced earlier this week. Guillermo del Toro's fantasy romance, The Shape of Water, is leading with 13 nominations, including Best Picture. World War II drama Dunkirk follows with 8 nominations, while 3 billboards outside Ebbing, Missouri, received 7. Among the actors, Frances McDormand, a 4-time nominee and winner for Fargo in 1997, was nominated for her lead performance in 3 billboards. Joining her were Sally Hawkins for The Shape of Water, Margot Robbie for I, Tonya, and Meryl Streep for The Post. The Oscars will be held on March 4th. And ending the show on a musical note, British singing legend Elton John is retiring from touring, but not before embarking on a massive world tour run. The 70-year-old made the announcement after a live performance of his hits. I'm going to leave you this week with a glimpse from that event. Until next time, this is Frank Pereira signing off.
Slow